Well, don't you all look fine? Up close and from the pulpit, too. That's great. Welcome. Welcome to Second Parish in Hingham for our homecoming service, water communion, and just a great coffee hour. So a lot happening this morning. I have a number of announcements, and perhaps some of you have announcements too. So if anybody would like to make an announcement, I invite you to come up to the microphone. Anyone? Okay, it means I earned my money this morning. Yeah, let's begin. As I said, today is the water communion, and if you did not bring your water, there are little cups in the vestibule and a pitcher of water. Please pour just a drop, and you can use that water. And don't be shy, because I'm using one of those little cups too. Also, you will notice in your pews cards, index cards. If you have a joy or a concern that you would like to share, please write it on the card, and I will read them during the joys and concerns portion. The pumpkin patch starts in 2 weeks. Lisa has asked me to remind you there will be lots of opportunities to participate. Laying out pallets, unloading pumpkins, and the apple pie team will be back. So be thinking about that, please. And also, Lisa has taken on the job of raising our social media profile. So if you would, you can follow us on Facebook, Friends of Second Parish, and on the official Second Parish website. And what Lisa and I talked about, and she came up with some wonderful ideas, will involve her putting out just some snippets about the sermons and the activities during the week, so perhaps people who might not know what good things we're doing here will have a chance to learn. Leadership Board will meet Tuesday night on Zoom at 7 o'clock. And the rabbi at Temple Beth Shalom in Hull has asked me to announce that they will be having a remembrance service in honor of 9/11 at the temple tonight at 6 o'clock. There, for many years, has been a remembrance at the Bernie King Pavilion. This will be a little bit different and a little bit shorter, but if you would like to attend, you are certainly welcome. If there are no other announcements, our service will begin. Aloha. means welcome, and it means homecoming. It means love. Welcome to those of you visiting for the first time. Welcome home to those of you returning. It's good to meet here in welcome. It's good to meet here in love. It is good to meet and to nourish spiritual exploration in community. We're going to sing an opening hymn for the first time in 3 years. Those of you at home, please sing out lustily from home. If you would turn to number 209 in the gray hymnal and rise, we will sing verses 1 and 3 of O Come, You Longing, Thirsty Souls. At this point in our service, we light our chalice and say our covenant, the promise we make to each other each week. I'm going to ask Lee, our RE coordinator, and Molly Stevens, our new teaching assistant. She will be working with Sean and Lee to light the chalice. And as they do, let us say together the covenant which you will find in your order of service. With love for each other, and with respect for each person's search for truth, we unite in the Spirit of Jesus for the worship of God and the service of our neighbors. Well done, and you might as well stay there, ladies. And Sean, would you come up? And children, would you please come up for time for all ages? Okay, very good. I will. After I've been fussing with my ear all morning. But it's not turned on great. Oh, it's not? No. Formal group here. Yeah. Okay. Thanks. Hello. Hello, 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 hello. I want some smiles, please. Oh, there's one. There's one. There's one. Oh, that's a good one. Thank you.
Wait, okay.
Oh, that's good. That's good. It looks, am I seeing double?
This is my new friend, Rosie.
Oh, Rosie.
This is my new friend, kids, Rosie.
Well, Lee, stand up because the adults might want to meet Rosie,
yeah,
too.
I'd like to meet everybody. Hi, everyone. Hi, I'm a little nervous because I'm new.
Well, we're very welcoming, so we'll tell you what we do here.
Okay, thanks, Sam. Hi, everyone.
Tell them Rosie's full name.
Oh, my name's Rosalind Doyle Sherman is my full name.
Thank you. Okay. But now here's another smile. How are you? Good. And you, oh, wow, 20 watts. I need my sunglasses. Yes, so you've got a subtle smile, but it shines. So everybody's well? How many people had a great summer? How many people had a good summer? I'm not going to ask any more questions, okay? But you remember, I don't know if you remember, and in fact, you guys might be learning about this for the first time. When you left, when we closed church in the spring, everybody got summer adventure bags. And if you didn't get one, guess what? We've got them for you. Yep. Rosa, you too. You get one. You get one too. And I got one. I was so happy. I got one, and it even says Rev Steph on it. Thank you, Mrs. Burdine. And the whole purpose of the Summer Adventures bag was to put something in there or things in there that you had fun with this summer. And if you didn't get a bag, or if you forgot, because sometimes we forget, maybe you'll find some things this week, because we're going to ask you to bring your Summer Adventures bags next Sunday. And that way you can show and tell people about those things in Sunday Adventures, and we get to know each other a little bit better. But today I'm going to show you two things from my Summer Adventure bag. Are you ready? I wonder if you have an idea what it might be. I don't think you'll guess the first one. You'll guess the second one. The first one, holy guacamole. I just discovered that actually I do like guacamole. But the reason I've avoided it for years is because some people make it incredibly spicy. But holy guacamole makes mild guacamole, which is good for me. So this is one of my favorite things from the summer, holy guacamole.
Holy moly, guacamole. I look like guacamole.
You do look like it. Yum, 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 yum. How many of you like guacamole? Oh, gosh. Well, if you don't like spices, try the mild. And the other thing, I think you all know, I love to read. And I treated myself to buying a book that just came out. Thank you. And I loved it. It's called Horse. This was a wonderful book. It was. It was a wonderful book about an African-American slave who looked after a horse in the time period of the American Civil War. But it was also about people living in our time, too, and struggling with problems between people of different races. It's a fabulous book, and I just read it right through. And I promised Mr. Belknap he could borrow it when I finished. So, first stop is at not that Mr. Belknap, the old guy. And if anybody else would like to borrow it, you're welcome to, but I need it back, because it's one of those books that after I'm gone, my family's going to have to take care of. It's going to stay with me until the end. So that's some of the stuff from my Summer Adventures bag. And maybe you'll have some stuff next week, right? And you can show each other. And after church next Sunday, maybe you'll show me some of those things too. Now, usually at this point, we say, go off to Sunday Adventures. But today's so special. It's water communion. That's why I'm wearing a river. So I'm going to ask you to go back to your family. And then, when we finish water communion, you are going to have a very special water activity. Okay.
Outside.
So thank you.
All right.
Many of you know that the water communion was started in 1980 by the woman who wrote Spirit of Life, and another friend whose name I don't know, but I know Carolyn McDade's name. And I'd like to start by reading to you something called All Water is One by Mel Hoover and Rose Eddington. Water unites us. All water is one water, shape-shifting as it goes on and on in its unending cycle. The stream we gather by unites us with all the waters of the world, for all of life depends on water. That's why this common, everyday element on which our very lives depend is sacred. In our thankfulness for water, let us remember to honor, to cherish, and to care for it, for our own lives, for all life touched by water, and for those who come after us. In our water communion ceremony, we pour all of our water into a common container. You'll see it's not all that big, because we're just asking you to give us a couple of drops of water. And as I said, if you need some water, there are small cups like this and a pitcher of water in the vestibule. I start by pouring in water from previous water communion services, which means a great deal to many of us who have had people pass through this church and no longer present, but certainly present in our hearts, who poured into this water. And I'll pour a little of that water in, and I want you to know that I save this water, and then anytime I do a child dedication here in church, I use this water as part of the ceremony. And I would like to add my own personal water for the summer, but from the very recent summer, this water represents the tears that I have shed for two great ladies who passed, Queen Elizabeth II and a dear friend and mentor to me who lived just up the street, Alice Duffy. So they both passed on the same day. And Alice's daughter said to me, "We lost two queens today." And I think she put it just right. And now I would ask you to come up with your water, as I'll call by sections. And if you would speak into the microphone, which moves up and down, and say in a sentence what your water represents, then we will know what we are sharing in this container of water. So let us begin with this side of the church. If any of you on this side would like to come up with your water and tell us what it means to you, that would be wonderful.
This water is from a place that's sacred for me, and that's the kitchen of my girlfriend's home. Tracy's waving at me.
Hi, John. Is it
Oh, operator error. There we go.
Is that better? Thank you, Tracy. I'll start again. This water is from a place that's sacred for me. That's the kitchen of my girlfriend's house, where we share in a lot of wonderful meal preparation. And in the upcoming year, I plan to do more of my share of that work.
Thank you, John. Jane. Good to see you.
This water represents the places I've traveled. And I went to England, and I had the pleasure of getting into seeing Buckingham Palace. And that was just the first week of August. So it was really touching for me when our Queen did pass. So this is for the Queen as well. Thank you.
Oh, I'm supposed to talk? Yeah. This water represents Stop and Shop, which is where we bought it. And, but we're very grateful to be able to have the ability to have clean water. A lot of people in the world don't. Thank you.
Well said. Thank you. Thank you. I'm going to surprise you now and ask for anybody on the far side of the church who would like to bring up water. Please do so. Team Stevens.
Yep. This water is from Lake George, where we had a very nice family trip at the beginning of the summer.
Thank you. Lovely to have it. went there.
Thank you. Wait a minute.
And don't pour that. That's the mic. What can I do? Okay.
Maybe hold that.
Yeah.
This water is from Dana-Farber. I just snitched some up at the hospital. It's for Dana-Farber that has kept me alive quite successfully. And I appreciate that. And it's good to share the water from Dana-Farber with all of you who probably are happy to have that kind of treatment in this great medically talented city of ours.
We're very glad and appreciate them keeping you alive too, Joyce. Thank you.
John and I literally went nowhere this summer. So I decided to collect all the rainwater we had this summer, and here it is.
Oh, my.
This water is from Cavendish, Vermont, where our son Mark was married in June. So, very happy time for us.
Wonderful.
I'm here as a very frustrated gardener this year. The green represents things that we did not have a lot of, and it is empty because of the reminder of the drought. So there's my prayer for water next year.
This is water from Newfound Lake, New Hampshire, where our family's had a summer place for over 130 years, and it's my favorite place in the world.
We're happy to welcome Lauren this morning.
Last but not least, this water represents a trip with the Stevens family camping and a paddle, a very funny paddle down the Saco River, which was about this deep. But it was an amazing day, an overnight nice campfire, and that's what this is for.
Thank you. Shall people from this section come forward now, please?
So I have a well at my house, and every summer, especially when it's super hot, I pray that my well stays well. And it did, and this water represents my gratitude to my well.
Thank you.
This is water from Nantasket Beach, and it represents for us many hours of friendship and play.
Thank you. Good play. Speaking of Nantasket.
This represents water from Milford, New Hampshire, where my son and his family live, because I had a wonderful visit with them this summer.
Thank you.
Dylan and I took road trips nearly every weekend to like Connecticut, Maine, New Hampshire, and that's from those.
New England water.
Somewhat like Diane, I'm a frustrated gardener. This is from my hose. I dragged it all over the place this summer.
So when I asked Molly and Caleb what water was special to them this morning, the first thing Molly said, and I hope my mother, Carol, is listening, was it represents the earth and the trees, because that's the ending of my mother's very long grace every time that that we got to eat dinner with her. So that was the first thing. The second thing was learning to jump off the dock in the deep end. And then Caleb said learning how to swim really fast, right? And then I'll say it was the water off of, or in the Puget Sound in Washington at Whidbey Island, which was a wonderful place to quarantine if your child tests positive for COVID after a lovely, lovely wedding and isn't really sick. So that was a really wonderful time.
That's a lot of water. Thank you. Okay. Thank you, Molly. Thank you, Kayla. And last but never least,
This water represents the rain that we were blessed to have in Colombia. Almost every day it rained and cooled everything down, and we had such a glorious trip. And thank you all for helping us make that possible. Thank you.
thank you.
This water is from Booth Bay Harbor, where we've had a cottage for many years, over 40 years. Now now that my husband is gone, my children are in charge of the cottage, and they're doing a fantastic job.
To Booth Bay.
I had the privilege this summer of taking a road trip with my son's family to the Grand Canyon. Much of the road trip was through the Navajo Nation, and we spent one night in Monument Valley in a fancy cabin. And there was a little note on the window in the bathroom that said, please limit your shower to 2 or 3 minutes because most of us in Navajo Nation don't have any.
Thank you, Dinah. And thank you all. The water you have shared and the words you have shared certainly remind us that the ordinary becomes extraordinary, and the extraordinary becomes even more special when we appreciate these things. And now, in the spirit of sharing, let us all bless this water by reading together "So We Are Bound," which you will find in your order of service. This is written by Elizabeth Lerner McClay. As drops of rain that find each other and build to become a track, a rivulet, a stream, a river, a sea, so are we drawn together. So are we fortunate to find each other. So are we bound together on this shared passage toward an unknown ocean and eternity. Blessings on this water. And now, children, it's time for Sunday adventures. So, Sean and Molly as assistants, and Lee with Rozzy and Sam Bam, and all of you are welcome to go have some fun.
The ship went on with solemn face to meet the darkness on the deep. The solemn ship went onward. I bowed down weary in the place for parting tears and present sleep had weighed my eyelids downward. A new sight, a new wondrous sight. The waters around me turbulent, the skies impassive o'er me. Come in a
Thank you, Susanna. If you have written a joy or a concern on the card in the pews, now is the time to hand it to an usher. If you've not had a chance to do so, now is the time to write that joy or that concern. Of course, on this September 11th, it is a great concern that we all remember, the attack on the United States in 2001. And of course, we mourn with Great Britain for the loss of a symbol of constancy, but I will speak of that later in my prayer. And I have mentioned the passing of Alice Duffy, who was a consummate actress who started her made her Broadway debut at the age of 80 and was marvelous. And as I read what you have written on your index cards, we'll hear more joys and concerns. Thank you, Pam. I don't think Lee, thank you, Chip. I don't think Lee wrote this down, but her dear friend Sherman passed away yesterday. And Sherman has performed here, and she's quite shaken, but is a trooper. And of course, Sherman was a man who loved his neighbors. And as she put it to me this morning, gave when he didn't even have anything to give. So I guess that leaves a little bit of a mess for his family to fix, but he was a generous, kind, and good soul. So we think of him. Here's a concern for the people of Jackson, Mississippi, who don't have clean, drinkable water in America in the 21st century. Thank you for mentioning that. Here is a concern about the rise in physical threats and violence in expressing political views, but also a joy to be back in church with kind, loving people. And here is another joy, expressing gratitude for being back in this community. Here is, I'm sorry, Lee did mention that she has lost one of her closest friends, Sherman Whipple. And here is a joy, also about Sherman. I'm so grateful Sherman went quickly and was surrounded by family. I am also so grateful for support and comfort from my friends and from Fisher. Here's a thank you to me and to Mark. Thank you, Veronica, for helping me prepare for my dad's celebration of life. Mark's recording was used in that service, and very meaningful that Second Parish could be part of it. And if any of you would like to see that service, which is just amazing, I even shared it with my sister in North Carolina, please let me know and I will forward it to you. And Veronica did an amazing job. And a joy, with all the acute changes in the world, let us hold close what is sacred and embrace the winds of change that can unite our divided worlds. There's a beautiful thought to end these joys and concerns with. And we also have another joy that Donna, who would be here normally, is not here because she's at her niece's wedding. This is the daughter of her brother who passed so suddenly last year. And the wedding is taking place in front of the beluga whale tank at Mystic Aquarium, because her niece is a PhD candidate in marine biology. So it is certainly wonderful. Shall we think on these joys and concerns as Susanna sings Spirit of Life? And if you sing along, I'm not going to complain. So, Susanna?
Come unto
Shall we pray together? Spirit of life, known by many names, held in many hearts, sought in so many times, we return to this space, joyful to be in a community of love and service. We have shared symbolic and actual water from our summers. We have shared joys and sorrows from our lives. In these moments of homecoming and welcome, may we embrace all that makes our lives and find meaningful pathways, loving community, and the mysteries of grace that ever sustain hope. Especially on this particular day, we remember the events of September 11, 2001, present and painful to some of us here, while at the same time distant and historical to others. Let us unite in all remembering the lives lost and the lives altered on that day, the peace shattered and the trust broken. But so too let us also remember the individual acts of courage and grace present in those dark hours. May we find our way to put the horror of the event in context, so that as with other acts of war throughout history and across the globe, we might be able to begin to understand and to seek a different way to live, a way of compassion and kindness. As we remember Queen Elizabeth in these days, as Great Britain and the world mourn, help us to be inspired by the constancy, the dignity, the humor, the faith, and the commitment to something greater that infused her being. Today's focus on water allows us a chance to see what we must share, what we must confront, what we must honor in our civic, in our personal, and in our spiritual lives. Let us see how the river runs and the ocean rolls, and how our true place in the beauty of creation flows with meaning. Let us reflect in the echo of the bell. God's speaking, we're listening. Shall we join together in the prayer of Jesus? Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Today is our second Sunday, and so we have a special collection exclusive of pledges to support on this day the work of a nonprofit that I got to see in action when I was in seminary, Apple Shop. Essentially, Apple Shop is devoted to multidisciplinary arts and education as a means of building hope and purpose for the residents of Eastern Kentucky who are indeed plagued by poverty, by substance abuse, by food insecurity, and by despair. Not only was Apple Shop's own offices, not only were they struck hard by the floodwaters, but in addition to cleaning their own space up, they turned immediately to supporting communities' efforts to solve their own problems in a just and equitable way in the context of the flooding damage. When I asked one of my dear friends who lives in Eastern Kentucky what would be the best way to support those people in their endeavors, he immediately said, Apple Shop. And it's a good fit for our church because we appreciate and we extend so many efforts to support the arts and to support the needy. If you are able to give, I hope you will give from your heart. Thank you. Let us stand and sing the doxology together. Please be seated. So the key line, I think, in this reading is what I just said. Let us not divide the tides, but discover all they have to teach us. There are more lessons to learn, still more work to be done, so we lift our faces to the sun. May the seas help us see healing and hope. May we sing out the ocean survival and revival. Being the people of this blue planet is our most profound privilege and power. For if we be the ocean's saviors, then it is surely ours. Now I have my phone out because I'm going to signal Lee when to bring the children in for the closing hymn. But before that, I do want to say a little bit to you. I think we are all familiar with the concept of thirst. Some of you may be experiencing it right now. And we all have thirsts for different things. Some of us may have a thirst for justice, some for peace. Some may have a thirst for affirmation or for order. Some may have a thirst for belonging. Some have a thirst for power. Some have a thirst for learning. Some have a thirst for artistic expression. Some have a thirst for health or for love or for growing things. If I were to list all the kinds of thirsts we have, it would be a long list. And not only do thirsts vary from person to person, but they can vary in an individual's own life from time to time, situation to situation. The idea of thirst is widely known, widely understood, and that's really no surprise, given how central water is to our lives. It makes up most of our bodies, it makes up most of our earth. And this past summer, water, or the lack of, or the excess of, has dominated the news. I also should include the contamination of water has been in the news. So we get the importance of thirst, and we get the importance of water. Now, this morning we celebrated a water communion, and the founders of that ceremony made what I think is a most apt choice for expression of spirituality by choosing water to symbolize spirituality. Spirituality can be as essential and as taken for granted as water. It can be as overwhelming. It can be as absent. It can be as threatening or political or confusing. It can be as polluted. And it can also be as satisfying as water has been to us this summer when we collected little drops or carried the hose around or had a quenching thirst or a dip in ocean or lake water. And as with thirst, people's spirituality covers an enormous range. From people who find spirituality alone, pursuing some individual activity, perhaps walking in nature or contemplating their own thoughts, to people who see spirituality and find it in some communal religious activity, reciting a memorized prayer in a formal service, or hearing scripture spoken and interpreted by a clergy person. And in between, there are considerable degrees of individuality and community, including such things as the creation and the appreciation of art or music, and physical activity, and conversation with others or interaction with the written word, and participation in a group service effort. Whenever someone chooses to express and explore their spirituality, and whatever they choose to express and explore, they are generally touched by the thirst for what their understanding of it offers, and they seek to quench that thirst. Now, in my role as minister, not just to this congregation, but to a larger community, I often find people's thirst for spirituality is awakened by a great change. Sometimes it is a joyous change, such as a birth or a wedding. Sometimes it is a grievous change, such as an illness or an accident or a death. And when I encounter people with this sudden thirst, I'm reminded of how, just as with water, Spirituality is part of our lives, whether we address it or not. In the past few days, television, the computer, the newspapers have been full of commentators speaking about Queen Elizabeth II and casting their eyes on the long historical view, which isn't surprising considering she's been the Queen of Great Britain for 70 years. And I think if we take that kind of a long view with spirituality, we can see that for centuries it has been acknowledged as a part of life and something that institutionalized religion would take care of. For some people in a meaningful way, and for other people not so much. But religion and perhaps spirituality were recognized as part of life, as it still is in some cultures within this country and abroad. But for many people, that has changed. Disappointment and disgust with the failings of religion have alienated and isolated many from spirituality, as has ignorance or unawareness. And frankly, these people don't seem to miss it, because in our busy world there are plenty of options, plenty of things that will fill up our time, fill up the void until someone encounters that moment of thirst. Not just a moment of spiritual thirst at a time of celebration or of crisis, but also a thirst for an ongoing sense of the meaning and the purpose of life. Which makes water communion a wonderful ceremony to start our church year, as it reminds us that just as we regard water as essential to life, just as we regard water as not just a powerful but also a fragile resource, needing thoughtful care and respect and conservation, just as water can overwhelm us in its absence or its presence, just as we cannot hold water in our hands, but only in a container of some sort, whether it's made by nature or by humans, our spirituality benefits from being held and nourished in community, especially in ongoing community, where we have opportunities to share. We have opportunities to share exploration, service, understanding, hope, and love. May we be grateful for the water in our lives. May we nurture the spirit in our souls. May we know where and how and with whom we can quench our thirst. And now to close our service with our children, we are going to sing, "There's a River Flowing in My Soul." Go forward from this service doing things from your soul. And may you find strength and purpose in the spirituality of that river of joy. Amen.
Thank you.